right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. We're having a conversation with young people to hear their concerns, and also we'll get into their solutions going forward and where they think the government needs to focus on. Let's see what you're saying online. A lot of feedback coming through at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. Some of the people who've always been sending feedback are here with us, so I don't know whether we're going to get their feedback as well on Twitter. Babu Michael is here, Concerned Citizen, and Andrew Oleshonko who always send in their views. Let's see who else is sending in their views now. Brian Chemwa says we need meaningful youth participation in public policy and governance. The government should create platforms for youth engagement, e.g. youth councils, advisory committees, consultations, and provide them with resources, not using them as tools of mandamano. In fact, Wilkist, I'll need you to respond to this because I know you're involved in this, as well as Shiko and even Pande. Are these engagements with young people more impactful, or is it just for paperwork? And we'll go talk about that in just a bit. Let's see what else you're saying online. Remy Butia says youth can advance civil society growth, poverty reduction, economic expansion, and innovation by strengthening the participation of women and youth, promoting human rights, facilitating access to justice, and ensuring inclusion of all communities. Again, this inclusion and participation of young people comes up again. D19 says it's time to advocate for a policy, I believe that's what you wanted to say, that prioritizes citizens over bureaucratic edicts. Okay? Jagenya says the Ruto administration, which was once a beacon of hope to the so-called hustlers, is slowly morphing into a dictatorship hell-bent on muzzling the voice of young Kenyans opposed to their exploitative policies. What government kills its citizens because they are hungry? Okay? Young people's active contributions can bring democratic values to life, leading to the overturning of authoritarian practices. This can only materialize if they maintain positive thinking and the art of presenting themselves confidently. Okay? Bobo Tieno Wino, another ardent viewer, says politicians are using youths to push for their interest. Once they achieve their ambitions, they are abandoned. The band at the back stops with them to resist and reject these legislators when they come to them with peanut tokens. All right. Babu, wewe ukiangalia hivi sasa situation vile iko saizi, unataka serikali ifanye nini aswa? Because hizi vitu wanasema tu wanataka time. Kuna vitu zingine kadhaa zishawekwa tayari. Mmeongea juu ya hustlers, tumeongea juu ya opportunities zenye ziko. Mayouth wenyewe wanachukua, take advantage of those opportunities, ama pia wanangojea tu. Kila mtu ni kusema tu serikali ile ifanye hivi, serikali ifanye hivi. Wewe mwenyewe kama hustler, ni nini unafanya aswa kujimudu mwenyewe kama hustler?
Trevor, the truth is that our politicians na leaders wetu, they can just make legislatives, zile sheria zinaweza facilitate youth yoyote, ile effort unafanya ikupe matunda mzuri or ikupe results mzuri uweze kujikimu maisha yako. Hakuna politician yoyote atakuletea chakula kwa nyumba yako ama kwako. You have to make some effort. But when the youths of this country try to raise their issue, like now, youths wanasema tuko njaa. Trevor mwenye ako njaa hata fikiri. You can't think well, truly. If you are a human being, uko njaa, you can't think. Ufikiri akili kwanza haiko. So what we should do, ukijaribu kuongea unaambiwa you are Azimio or that. We have to make these people responsible. There is something going on. Serikali ikiingia, any government ikiingia inatuambia tutafanya hii. Mostly hizi infrastructural developments lazima ionekane amejenga nyumba mahali, maybe some big roads and all that. Kibaki anakumbuka mpaka saa hii kwa sababu ya economy. Alimake economy ikakuwa mzuri, hata youth ako chini, at least ukihustle ile pesa yako unaweza enda nao kwa nyumba, upate chakula unaweza kula, umudu maisha ya familia yako na nini. By now mafuta, I mean the transport, whatever I do, transport deliveries and all that. Mafuta saa hii iko juu, Trevor. Mafuta, and tunajua vizuri mafuta ikipanda everything itapanda. So we are being told mafuta tena itapandishwa with 8%, I don't know. So inatoka 8% inaenda to 16%, which will raise everything. You can't uwezi nyamaza na vitu zinaenda mbaya. So what the government should do, at least hata kama si kujenga nyumba ama kufanya road ama fanya nini, make economy at least kila mtu afeel vizuri. You just feel fit and useme hii najivunia hii nchi yangu, I can put food on the table without much strain. Sasa hii watu wana strain. People really strain. For you to make like 500 shillings in a day today, is so you have to go a lot through a lot of things,
okay,
so that you can make at least a living.
Jana,
so when
President mwenyewe alisema hata ukiweka sufuria kwa kichwa one full year, cost of living haitateremka.
Okay, so that is the only option we have.
Okay,
ndio watu sikize. So what will you do? Even you uko njaa, hauna kitu ya kukula, unaambiwa promises, uliambiwa nikiingia hivi bei itashuka ya unga. Sasa hiyo unga tuliambiwa ilishuka, ilitoka 250, ilitoka maybe 200, sasa hii iko 170 na inaendelea ikishuka. Sasa hii mimi nanunua unga, I go to shops, hata wewe unaweza. Unga sasa hii is 200 and going up. Brands yoyote ukienda kwa supermarket na nini, even the retail shops, whatever, uwezi afford unga. Sasa hii tumeresort mpaka labda unaweza nunua hata mkate ilipanda. Labda uende maviazi, you see how you can make around with something you eat. Yani you survive. And these people, I see they are using the youths in a bad way. I saw like a kid, there was a kid who was alipigwa risasi pale Kibira. I don't know, sijui alifanya nini. So our legislators, our leaders try to listen to the youths. Kenya included, tunajivunia youth population. Even in Canada, all these countries, wanasema Africa will rise just because of the youths wako. Youths wanaweza fanya kazi. Yeah? So Kenya should use the youths well.
Okay.
Haufai tupigwa risasi, haufai kuambiwa utafanyiwa hivi, alafu baadaye unaambiwa sasa ngojeni kidogo tutaendelea tutafanya. No.
Sasa wewe mwenyewe saa hizi ukiangalia, suluhisho iko wapi? Ni leaders wenyewe wakae chini ama wafanye vipi? Because vile umesema kama maandamano is the only way to do it, but which other direction should they take? What do you expect now from them? Should the leaders just sit down and agree? Because most of the time, even that agreement in itself inaletanga shida. Because utasikia walienda wakakaa chini wakasikizana kivyao, bado wewe umebaki tu pale penye ulikuwa. Hakuna mtu atakuja kuambia sasa juu tumesikizana, sasa bei ya mafuta imeteremka.
So Trevor, let me say this. Hao watu wanajuana. Hao watu wanapigiana simu. They are friends, Trevor. Truth be told, hata kama unaona wanaongea, wanashutumiana nini, they talk ill about their selves, wanajuana. They can, even a phone call, wanaweza pigiana simu waseme, we, niaje, kuje to meet, tuongee na hivi na hivi. I believe in one thing, Trevor. There's this thing called BBI, Trevor. It had bad things. Wakasema, imeletwa juu ya leaders na nini. Wanaweza toa those sections wenye walikuwa naona it was so much on the leaders. There are very many things BBI ilikuwa ilete to the table yenye inaweza saidia mpaka the youths. Back up our constitution, which is really supportive. So what we should do, wanaweza kaa chini waseme, okay, BBI from the first thing, one vote, 1 shilling, and other articles, hizo mavitu zilikuwa ndani mzuri, kuna zenye zinaweza support youths. At least hizo through those legislations, ukimake effort. Tuseme for example sahi tuliambiwa kuna hustler fund Trevor, kuna phase 1 ilikuwa ile ya kuboro, unaweza borrow kama 500 bob na nini. What can you do with 500 bob sahi? Unga mbili, hiyo ni unga mbili, hujanunua mafuta, hujanunua all that spices na nini. Leave alone that. There was phase 2 ya 10 million whatever if you have an organization na nini. Can they organize youth and give them civic education, political education? Uambiwe you can form groups and they be serious. Si ati kuongea tu muambiwe mformime groups. We have MCS. Sasa wanasema wanataka kuongezewe pesa. MCA anasema anataka kuongezewe pesa na kwa ground tangu mchague umuonangi. You just voted him in. He can't come our mobilize waambie forming groups na hizi juu kuna hustler fund. There is some youths hawajui. Wao wanasikia tu pesa iko, but mtu hajawaambia unaweza get access upate hiyo pesa namna gani. Maybe it can help them, but they are not aware. So I'm telling our youths, tunafaa tuone, educate. There are some youths wanasema ati politics haimsaidii. Let acha nikwambie, in one way or the other, upende usipende, politics and issues concerning this country will touch you in one way or the other. Juzi hii maandamano ikiendelea, hakuna kazi ilikuwa inaendelea. Mimi nilikuwa kwa nyumba 2 days. Uko na familia, unafaa ulishe. Uko na families, lazima support them. Kama uendi kazi utawasupport aje? Hata kama hukupiga kura, ulisema wewe mimi sipigi kura. Hii 15% content wamelisema kama wewe ni content creator whatever utakatwa 15%. Most of our watu siko ubaya. I'm not saying they say mimi mamna ya politics taki. So now it is hitting them. If such law pass, itakukula wewe mwenyewe.
Okay.
So we have to be concerned. That is why I'm saying I'm a concerned citizen.
Citizen, okay. Shonko, you know, it's the same thing we're talking about. Participation of the young people in all these policies. How far do they go, and do they even care enough? Because all this information is available, and young people have a lot of information around them. Why don't they particularly pick info that helps them?
I think it's very clear that the issue of governance is a very big issue in our country, especially when it comes to young people. Young people do not really so much understand when it comes to matters of governance, and there is a lot of information that probably they don't know. And especially when you look at the current maandamano that is going on right now, you'll see that a very big percent, almost 100% are young people. And this is an age of a very productive person, and it's evidence that this person is idle, not doing anything, because I believe there is no employer out there who can give you permission to go and demonstrate and leave the company and not work. That means there is a lot that probably the government need to do, especially when it comes to the issue of civic education, training young people, and also a lot of investment when it comes to areas that will give these young men and women opportunities and job. Because if you look, there was in the manifesto of the current government, they had really said that they will put a lot of investment in manufacturing. But 1 year down the line, mwenye macho hambiwi tazama, very little has been done, especially when it comes to creating jobs for the youth. There has been this story of housing. Surely, if you look at the number of people who are graduating from colleges, who are graduating from universities, higher education, there is very little they can do when it comes to the space of affordable housing. I think they really need to look at it from all angles, from all sectors, and try to build from the bottom, as they say. And I think one of the things that is coming out clearly is that a lot need to be done. Yes, they have a very good manifesto to them to say, but in terms of implementing what they promised Kenyans, I think that is where they are falling short a bit, because people are hungry, and then priorities probably are not really right. Get someone a job, they will work and feed their families. Get someone a place where they can get something to run errands and so on, and this one will help them. Like, for example, myself, I'm in the digital space. This is one of the space that can actually be able to employ a lot of youth. But in terms of investment in that area of the digital space, very little is being done out there. And this is one of the areas whereby people can even work from wherever they are. They can work from home, provided they have, in terms of connectivity. But when you look at the support system to support this young person to be able to be equipped, to be able to have this knowledge. And when it comes to the issue of job creation, jobs are there, especially in the space that I have said that I am in. There are people outside even the country who are sourcing some digital labor from Kenya. So if this is being tapped so well, it can actually be able to solve some of the issues that concerned citizens are actually raising.
Okay.
Yes.
Alenga, is this an issue of opportunities, lack of opportunities of youthful participation, or a cavalier approach by the youth themselves to take up the available options? Because like what Andrew is saying right now, I mean, he's doing his digital marketing on his own. He's not being employed by government. They can only be employed, government can only employ quite a number of people. They can't employ everyone. Of course, they create the conducive environment for employment, but are the youth themselves taking the available opportunities, or are they a bit more nonchalant about the things that exist?
I think, Trevor, we'll be being very unfair if we say that youth are not taking charge of opportunities, because the opportunities are very minimal. And like the digital space is just one of the places you expect people to go to. But again, you cannot expect everybody to go there. We have, there's a reason why, like, let's say, for instance, if I go to school and study anthropology, there's a reason why I'm studying that. If I really wanted to go to the internet in the end, then I would have just gone and studied maybe how to use my phone, which does not really require me to go to school. So this country has a problem where it continuously trivializes education. We have seen charlatans being rewarded with state jobs and all that. Then you go home and even question, why do we really need to study? Because we are going to school to get knowledge to change our generation. And if that knowledge and the amount of money we are using to even go to school, taking a young person to school today costs a lot of money. But then after that, then you come out of school and you realize there's a different ballgame outside there. Somebody is telling you, create your own job. While they are telling you that, they are actually in a state job, which they have been being recycled for decades. They are past retirement age, but they are there, and they are coming to tell you, look for a job. Really now? You remember in the graduation at JKUAT University, the deputy president himself stood and told the young people that were graduating, there are no jobs for you. You know, it's like we have been pushed away completely. This government hates their young people. And the reason why they hate the young people, we do not understand. It is now time to question whether these young people require to be in this country or not. Trevor, today it is shocking how many young people are leaving to the Gulf to go and suffer there and even die. And those people that are boarding planes to the Gulf have gone to school. They have a level of education that they could actually be used in this country, but they decide to go away. They are people who have studied medicine, IT, all manner of disciplines, but they are going out of the country because there is no opportunity here. When you go online today, there are so many people that are telling others how you can go to this country, how you can immigrate to this country, and we are continuously losing our young people because they cannot find a place here to settle. The government of this nation rode on a principle that they were going to open up opportunities for people, that they were going to shake the space. But what did they do? Immediately into office, they decided to appoint people who had supported them, people who had helped them to insult the previous regime, and those are the people that were rewarded. So if we have a kind of country that operates in that particular manner, what do we hope for the young people? And I actually distance myself from the fact that young people are being used for mandamano and all that. It is not so. It is the young people that are conscious about the future. If I am 60 years old, I don't care whether we have a silly administration or not. I have lived my first half, which is important. This other one, I don't know how far I will go. But if I am in my 20s, if I'm in my 30s, if I'm in my 40s, I care about how this nation will look. So when the youth takes center stage in fighting for democracy and the preservation of rights in this country, we cannot characterize them as being used by politicians to go outside there. They care. Remember in Madare, there's a young man who stood and faced the police and asked them, you have tear gassed my baby. He's almost dying in the house. Why are you doing this to us? But then what did the police do? Masquerading as journalists, they arrested him and bundled him onto a truck. That is the message we are sending to young people. We do not want you. We do not even want your small babies. I mean, we cannot operate like that. There has to come a time when this government, when this nation has to have a conversation whether they want their young people or not. And actually, Trevor, the bigger conversation we should be discussing today is the loss of rights in this country. We are gradually losing rights in this country. And this is a very big point to test ourselves. If we let the grip off and Article 37 of the Constitution is mutilated as this government is systematically doing, my friend, there are many more rights that are going to be clawed back by this regime. It has already shown us their intention and their plan. It is up to Kenyans to stand and tell this regime there are certain things you will not claw back. If we keep quiet, this is going to be terrific. The government has already indicated that slowly by slowly. Yesterday we had Babu Owino being arraigned in court past 5 p.m. That one is a mheshimiwa and is being treated like that. What about a common person like myself and you? If we get arrested, what will happen to us? We are still having a dispensation where people are being rushed around the place in Subarus. We are in a situation where people are coming, like there was some lone protesters in town, and somebody is speaking to the media and they get handpicked and they are taken to the police station. We have gone back to the Moi era where if you found yourself in a group of 5 people, you'll be hesitant to speak because you don't know who is the police officer in those 5 people. Now, if we release our nation to a police state, where are we going? We must be cautious and conscious all at once. Okay. This conversation of when you start to speak about what the government has to do, you are branded this particular, you belong to this particular formation. When you praise the regime, you are now in the good books of that regime. This is mediocrity, and we have to say no to this.
Okay. All right. Shiko, now let's focus on the solutions now. Going forward, what must be done now?
Before we say what must be done, Trevor, I want to actually just say we've really spoken about Babu Owino. He has the backing of the politicians. He has the backing of his party leader and everyone else, because everybody else is talking about it. But I remember Professor Kindiki saying that over 300 young people were arrested.
304, actually. 304
young people were arrested. Who is talking about them?
Yeah.
Who knows where they are? Yesterday, a human rights defender in Kisumu, Boniface Akach, was arrested. We don't know where he is. Who is talking about him? We're still talking about Julius Kamau, a lone protester, for tying himself and saying poverty is man-made because the government is making poverty what they want it to be. We're still arrested. Julius is arrested every other week. Who is talking about him? Are these not Kenyans worth a conversation? Are these lesser because they're not politicians? And the unfortunate bit, Trevor, as we look at what we can do, of course, because the much we can do is say, we can do our bit, but the government has to do its bit. And for me, the injustices that are thriving are making us question why we even have to vote as a people. The injustices we are seeing, and the gifting that is happening in government, because as long as you are a shareholder of this government, then at least maybe you have a position. And I hope the shareholders who are really fighting for this government are really affording a meal every day. So the solutions for me is one, Mr. President, suspend that Finance Act. It's not going to work. Kenyans are not able to. And we're not going to kill ourselves paying taxes. Our problem is not paying taxes. We are ready to pay taxes if, personally, I do not have to go back to my pockets to afford medical services. I am ready to pay for those taxes if I don't have to dig back to my pockets to pay for a private school so that my child stays in school. I am ready to pay for even the 35 you're asking for the rich people, if only I can be able to live with dignity as a human being. Secondly, we need to stop politicking. Campaigns are literally 4 years away. I'm not sure if it's an issue of insecurity, but please stop reminding us that you won. We know you won. Now do the job that you promised. You cannot keep, I know somewhere in October they're planning to do another increase of taxes. You've not even started being taxed, whatever is in the Finance Act, but they're already planning on where to get more money from. Most of these Kenyans, an average young people who is employed earns at least 30,000 Kenya shillings. How much do you want them to take home? There's an interesting thing that is happening even at the county level, where you pay your levies for businesses and everything. When you pay, there's a levy they are calling a ground tax. I'm like, I'm paying for the rent of this house that I'm working on. Why do I need to pay you for ground? Which ground are you offering? Because also the landlord pays for the land rates. So we need to stop double taxing people. The tax injustice in this country is very loud, that when you think about it, you wonder, what is the end game? And I think, according to the president, maybe when he was campaigning, we're not sure if he knew what he was saying, or this is when he's getting the wake-up call that whatever I said was a lie, and I don't know how to go about it. But the president spoke about tax injustice loudly during his campaign, but at the same time kept saying how he won't borrow from the outside. He's borrowing while overtaxing us. I'm not sure what the correlation is. But I've had conversations, especially from one of the only honorables we have in our assemblies, and that is Okiya Omtata. He's the only man with honor in those houses, and unfortunately, and I'm sorry and not sorry to say so. Him saying that we've been paying for debts that didn't come to Kenya. So where do these monies go? Why are we paying for salaries for someone to sit in parliament and they cannot give us these answers? Were they not supposed to be our eyes? But also the contrast of Kenyans sleeping hungry, but those in government increasing their salaries is something that we really need to look into.
Although that was shut down by the president.
It was shut down by the president, yes, but the Remuneration Commission said they're going to proceed with it. So there's a whole thing. We don't know who says what in this country anymore.
Okay.
It's about who comes out and gets the ear, right?
Yeah.
And the president can say, isn't he the man who said we're going to get 100 bob unga? Isn't he the person who told us we'll get gas cylinders at 500 bob by June of this year? We're towards the end of July. Have you seen any? So it's about looking at the truth of things. And I understand Rome was not built in a day, but please don't give us Rome. Yeah. If we're still living in an informal settlement. Okay. Allow us to at least even see Karen for a bit, you know. But the truth of it is that also the government needs to first take a breather. You asked earlier, what do they need to do? Dialogue is one way, but dialogue means sovereign power belongs to the people. Have a dialogue even with the people and understand what their needs are. Yeah. We keep talking about need-based analysis.
Babu is suggesting a possible referendum. Is that the way to go?
No.
No?
He mentioned about BBI. You've actually reminded me. Yeah. He mentioned about BBI. We are not short of policies and bills. We even have youth policies beautifully done and funded by different partners. And they were done and they're somewhere in the shelves gaining dust. Why are we not implementing those? Why do we need to go for BBI? See, we first of all need to question, why is Musalia Mudavadi being paid by my taxes? Who is he? And why? Anchored where in the Constitution? You mentioned something that the government can't employ the youth, but they can create a conducive environment for me to be able to function. Someone mentioned about the digital space. The government is already coming for that space without knowing what is in there. The much they know is the money they pay young vulnerable bloggers to go tarnish people's names. Like those ones who sit down and say anyone who fights the government is an Azimio person, right? But they forget that all of us have equal rights to fight for that space. All of us have equal rights to keep this government accountable. Okay. But necessarily for our citizens, our work does not end at the polling station. Because what we have right now, if really we had a functional government, I think people who did not show up to vote were more than the votes that the presidents got. Why didn't we sit down and ask ourselves, what if that was a protest vote? What did it mean? I think those who didn't vote had more than 50+1, right? To be fair enough, if democracy was to rule. But that's not the case. So we must ask ourselves, does our role end at the ballot? Okay. But more and beyond, can we meaningfully keep this government accountable? Okay. Public participation is something that came up there. Yeah. I do not think we have public participation as a nation. Why? Legally, a public participation notice is supposed to come 14 days to the actual day, right? What happens is, from the county I come from especially, we get the notice on Friday night or on Saturday, and public participation starts on Monday. Do you have time to even evaluate what they're going to discuss? How many citizens are available for that day? How many citizens even understand what doing memos mean? And even if you do these memos, we know for the first time we had so many people participating in the finance memorandums and stuff against, to be specific, the finance bill. Who read them? What did they say? The much we had is, oh, everybody's complaining about the housing levy. So let's move it to this. But at the same time, we had told you this is savings we're going to give you back. For now, we're going to reduce it, but keep it. Who is fooling who in this nation?
Okay.
So it's...
All right, Pandey, we're talking about solutions here. The clergy are calling for dialogue. Is that the direction we should take? Or should we go on for a full referendum and then now ask the questions to the people so that the people take part in this entire conversation? What solutions now do we offer the government?
Well, Trevor, as we offer the solutions, it's also important to note that the 304 young Kenyans that were mentioned to have been arrested are qualified to be what we call political prisoners. One of them being Hannington Oguk, a university student leader who was arrested in Kisumu the day before yesterday. Alongside his colleagues, they've not been produced before a court of law beyond 24 hours. Criminal in every sense. The police and the national government are perpetrating even more criminality against the citizens than the citizens could at this time. Talking about solutions, the first thing in the initial days, inaugural days of the Hustler Fund, I did an advisory letter to the president. And I think I circulated that amongst his ministers, including that of in charge of cooperatives, advising in some of the things that I thought were important to be included in the fund. For example, we are talking about access to government procurement opportunity by the youth. What if we had within that fund what we call LSO financing modality, so that if I'm a youth and I have a government tender in my hands, then I don't have to look elsewhere. I go into Hustler Fund and get money.
And if they don't pay you, they're aware that
they're paid. Yeah, if they don't pay me, they know that they're still holding my money because it's government to government anyway. Yeah. The other thing that I did is that there have been conversations around the cabinet administrative secretaries as not being as useful as Kenyans think. And our proposal as a replacement was that why don't we have then a more inclusive space where we have an advisory unit or an agency in charge of youth inclusion, just as we have the gender inclusion in cabinet now. So a cabinet level position for inclusion of young people. Mm-hmm. And downstream, what we'd have is what we call the junior government advisors. The role of junior government advisors is that government would second young people to every ministry, department, and government agency. Mm-hmm. And what they would be in charge of is, for example, harnessing tech in government delivery, because we're talking about e-governance. The other thing that they'll do is to monitor implementation of the AGPO rule. Because if you ask the Treasury today to give you an audit of how many young people have benefited from the AGPO rule, then they would be tongue-tied. Same to the county governments. And again, this is something that we have to also cascade down to the county governments, not just the national government. Yes, we expect that the national government provides more opportunities from policy levels to all spaces. But county governments, we've only seen a handful of governors, including young people in their county executive committees. This should be a standard practice across all the 47 counties, so that if you don't get sorted at home, then the national government sorts the majority that are still left.
Did anyone read your memorandum? Because I particularly like the government-to-government one on AGPO, because that is something that would be a game changer. But did anyone read that? No, lady?
My first advisory was addressed to the president. I had a personal conversation with the CS in charge of cooperatives, and he acknowledged that he received. And I also circulated this through quarters that I thought would get to the president. The second advisory on the youth inclusion Information Agency was directly to the head of public service and chief of staff of the president, because he makes such decisions and is able to advise the president. So much as we are out of government, much as we are saying that this country is in trouble, we've always provided solution. Shiko here has hosted me in Nakuru in a program where we are mentoring young people and providing them with the capacity to retool them to earn meaningful livelihood. But we don't need a government that bundles all young people and say that we are semi-skilled so that we all belong to, construction of affordable houses. Yes. There has to be, specific solutions for every sector. If people, and we have a city in Nairobi we are calling the Silicon Savannah. What are we doing with the tech endowment in this country? What are we doing with the innovation with young people in the country? Do we have, for example, a presidential award for innovators in this country? Do we have a ministerial award for people who excel in creating local solutions that are creating employment, that are creating more spaces and room for young people? So yes, we criticize the government, but we provide solutions. But nobody's listening. People are in their comfort zones. And, Trevor, one thing that keeps on hurting my presence in this country is that we are a government that all bureaucracies are filled with patronage and, people that are not even skilled. If you look at cabinet, you wonder.
Yeah.
Some of the people that are in cabinet, do they really belong there? Yeah. So let us press pause and reflect on the path we want to take as a country. Okay. The clergy has talked about dialogue. I have mentioned several times that dialogue is the way. Trevor, no amount of grandstanding, no amount of chest thumping provides solutions for this country. Yeah. At the end of the day, is that in the situation of conflict where we are today, what gets us out is talking to one another, is accepting that there should be seeding ground, and is harnessing unity for purpose and driving this country as one.
Okay. We're talking about dialogue here, and as you give your own version of your solutions, dialogue with who? That's a question that everybody then asks, because if the politicians speak to themselves, how are the people included in this whole conversation? So which solutions are you giving going forward to the government?
Right.
And also there was the issue of the youth participating. You can talk about that, because I know you deal with them a lot.
Yeah. So this one was asked by Brian Chemwa about meaningful youth participation. And he mentioned something very interesting that some of us here have worked on, the National Youth Council, which is supposed to be the voice of the young people. And I think somewhere around 2019, we had a whole campaign of NYC to Itakayo. We tabled, the bill went through all the processes. And then this year, Shiko, right? Yes. This year, something sneaked up on us, another bill to kill universal suffrage, that young people cannot elect their own representatives to the National Youth Council.
Yeah.
So, in as much as we are trying to push outside of government, by the way, and I really want to say that I'm not a member of any political party, and I'm speaking for and behalf of young people because I work with and for them. So looking at things like that, where government is literally, like turning off our lights, like killing young people in all the spaces that we can have to thrive, I mean, it's really one thing. And listening to all the conversations here, and just how saddening it is to hear everyone say what they're saying, and not because someone brought them here to say that. It's because these are actual experiences of how we are living within the society. And one thing that I think is very noticeable in terms of household expenditure is that 54% of household expenditure is actually on food for well-to-do households. For low-income households, it's 60% and above. So whatever low-income households are earning, they're using that to fend. Actually, ni atumbo, si kitu ingine. It's just, can I eat food? You have not even sorted out, is there a roof over my head, and can I afford healthcare? Like, healthcare is so far-fetched right now for a low-income household. In fact, the thing that people say that one bill puts you into poverty, for them, they're already in poverty. So there's no one hospital bill that is going to put them there. One hospital bill is going to send them into debt and mental health issues. In terms of civic education and political education, I want to say that political parties actually have a mandate to carry this out However, we wait for IBC in the election year to come and talk to people. That's a problem. So political parties, especially those funded by the Exchequer, need to step up and do this. And that goes to the ruling political party as well as all the other political parties, which are over, I think, 80 registered in Kenya right now. I think I applaud the direction of domestic resource mobilization for the government and not wanting to overburden Mwananchi. However, they have sneaked up on us and are still borrowing behind closed doors. That is really, and I think these are the things that are making people really angry, because they promise that they're not going to put us into further debt. They're not going to plunge the country into failure. However, what they're doing is they're telling us one thing and on the other hand doing another. This is making people really angry within these spaces. In terms of solution for myself, don't increase taxation for people. We are happy to pay our taxes. If you want to tie loose ends, because there are plenty loose ends where people are not actually paying their taxes, tie those loose ends. But stop increasing taxation, because we want to create more opportunities. How do we create more opportunities? Multinationals are not going to set up here if the tax regime is not friendly for them. Agriculture provides over, I think, 21.4% of GDP directly. This is not even speaking about all the other value chains that come from agriculture. So if we are providing fertilizer, and the farmers will tell you, some who use this fertilizer on maize, the maize had different colors. Like the plant itself, half of it was a different color, and the other side, the part where they use manure, was a different color. And because we question the quality of manure that was sent down to the people, let alone the accessibility of the produce that they were using. So you cannot, first of all, you can't access it. And when you access it, it's substandard. So that needs to be looked at, because we are not about joking with the backbone of GDP for the country. And it's plummeting downwards. So we really need to look at that more keenly. In 2020, the registrar of companies had around 154,000 registered companies new, because everyone was running to entrepreneurship, because a lot of Kenyans lost their jobs. Entrepreneurship is a solution to creating some of these opportunities that we are looking for. However, not everyone goes into entrepreneurship because they want to. You're forced to. I saw on the news some years back a classmate of mine selling boiled eggs, hawking boiled eggs in the in Kwando. He was walking around with it, hawking boiled eggs. I was so hurt, because they even went ahead of me and had finished their masters, and they were a top student. So are we making these opportunities work? Are we creating favorable and conducive environments for opportunities to work? And we need not bring Kenya down in terms of innovation. Kenya has been doing very well. If you look at the registered patents in Africa, Kenya is among the leading in terms of innovation and registered patents. If the government is going to provide opportunities for research and development, because there's very little funding that goes into research and development. And we know this is where the innovative ideas come from. We know this is where really the money is going to come from. So I think, and my solution is that do not increase taxes, tie the loose ends and the loopholes, create a favorable working condition for Kenyans to be able to eat, to live under a roof, and to afford healthcare.
All right. Babu, solutions going forward.
Solutions, Trevor, let me start by saying that there are pertinent issues, and I am with the sentiments of Siko about Okiya Mtata. I salute him. Let him continue with the good work. So Okiya Mtata, together with Jimmy Wanjigi, there are some issues they are raising about our debt, our treasury, about the treasury, about the budget structure and all that, about domestic debt, how the money we are getting within, the way we are using it. Let me say this. From the start, let us say we have borrowed that money, or within or outside Kenya. Let us see and structure this money and be traceable. Let it be traceable to get down there.
Okay.
There are a lot of budgets that have been read. Hizo governance zote nini. Are they trickling down to the common mwananchi? they are doing research and saying the economy is growing, I don't know how many %. How can you say that the economy is growing while somebody cannot put food on the table? There are structures. First, let me say this. Trevor, it's good for the youth to be heard. Tusikize maneno ya youth. Youth akiwa njaa ama aongee kitu, unafaa umsikize. In this government, they are trying to tell us that they had the bottom-up agenda. Is it really implementive? Can we really implement that? Jimmy Wanjigi is trying to tell us how the budget was running, how the government has spent and all that. Let me say, naweza support youths wetu according to what they know and all that.
Yeah.
Juzi, they are not bad people. They are good people. Only that this government does not listen to them. So to solutions,
yeah.
What should the government do? They should listen to the people.
Okay.
They should put everything to the table. Watuambie hii na hii na hii. On this issue of tax, it's good. Hakuna mtu hawezi hataki kulipa tax. But let them even introduce it in bits. Not once. Because if somebody cannot put food on the table, na unamwambia tena unamtoa tax, ile hawezi toa, what do you expect this person to do? He will be hostile. He will try to find his way. He will try to win, to tell you, listen to me. I'm saying this and this and this. When we say this, haimaanishi wewe ni mtu Azimio. Even me myself, I listen to both. Ukiwa youth mahali ama personality ama everybody ukiwa mahali, listen to both sides. Okay. Don't be on the one mostly on the other side.
All right.
Listen even huyu mtu mwingine anasema nini. Pia kila mtu hiyo akisema huyu,
yeah.
Because he's not on my party or on my alignment,
yeah.
He's wrong.
Okay.
He's not always like that.
All right. Shonko, solutions going forward.
I think for me the issue of youth and what is happening right now in our country is very, very evident that the most productive age of people, of young men, is actually going to a loss. And I had mentioned earlier that government ought to do a lot. Like right now, I deal with clients who are in tourism, for example. Right now we are having like wild beast migration in Masai Mara right now. The people who are supposed to come to our country and be able to visit some of those areas, they are actually not showing up. That means the impact to the business is actually very, very high. We've said that we need to have dialogue, but my question will be, as young people, as a youth, will I be listened? Yes, the dialogue will take place, but to whose advantage? As a youth, will I feel the impact of if they sit down? Of course, we want them to sit down and have a discussion. But me, as a common mwananchi and as a youth there, will I feel the impact? Because they don't need to tell me that this is what you have done. I can actually just sit with my eyes that this is what the dialogue has come out with. This is what the youth has gotten, and so on. In terms of representation, it's clearly that the young people in this country, the representation that is actually even there, they are doing very little when it comes to raising the issue of the youth. All the impact is actually being felt by this young person. No job, they have nothing to do. Someone is graduating from colleges and the university. When they come out here, nothing to do, a lot of energy. Where will they channel that energy? To the wrong places, whereby they will cause even more harm and so on to our economy. So for me, the solution that needs to be there, the government needs to, as they have the dialogue, they need to also listen to the young person, create opportunity for this young person, whereby they can be able to grow their skills, get a job, be able to feed them, and even look forward to becoming better and an important asset to our nation.
Okay.
Yes.
Alenga, how do we get out of all this? What are the solutions going forward?
I think, Trevor, first and foremost, we need to be realistic in this conversation, because when we ask for dialogue, we are basically trying to say there are two sides that have had a stalemate, and they need to talk themselves out of that. That is not the situation right now. The situation is there are certain issues that Kenyans are raising. And I think how we get out of here, first of all, to you, the fourth estate, the media, you must also revise the framing of this conversation, because I have been watching the news about the protest in Kenya. If you watch CNN, they are reporting to you that there's protests in Kenya against high taxation. If you watch Al Jazeera, they're telling you there is protests against a finance bill that proposes high taxation. If you watch BBC, they're telling you there is protests in Kenya against high taxation. But when you come to local media, they tell you Azimio protests. You know, that's where we're losing the conversation, because we are narrowing this bigger conversation to a political party. I have not had issues that Azimio has raised in relation to the previous election in these protests. That is not the question. And we're seeing the president talking about that and saying we are not going to have handshake with anyone. Actually, we do not want, because the conversation right now, the kind of protests we are having is they are legit issues that Kenyans are raising. So we begin from there by actually framing this conversation the way it should be. So once we frame it the way it should be, then it acquires the necessary attention that it deserves. Number two, we have to be very honest. If you look at the regime that is leading the country today, it was founded on a package of lies, and it has been very difficult to get out of those lies. So we have reached a place where maybe the only honest thing about the president is his name. That's the only honest thing. So we have to come back to where we are. And what did you tell Kenyans? And where are we? There are imperatives like high cost of living. We recognize that there is a high cost of living and it's cutting across the globe. But tell us, what are you doing towards it? When I go home and there is no supper, I should be able to explain to my family, well, we do not have today, but what are we doing? Are we going to take tea and sleep? Or I cannot just go and sit in the court and keep quiet. That's where we are as a country. So citizens are progressively speaking because the space is so silent. If you look at the cabinet, I think the president could also just reshuffle that cabinet, because when we had maybe the regime of Mwai Kibaki, we had a very particular cabinet ministers that you could single out and say, this one has done this, and in a period of like 3 months. This cabinet, even if you use an electron microscope and try to find out a minister who is working, you can't find none. You know, so what are we? Because that is the engine that drives the country. So if you have people that are sitting there, all they do is insult others on social media and become a public shame, and they are not even regretting that. So where are we heading as a nation? Number three, the president must be very honest about the cost of living and what he's going to do about it, because that is where we are right now. That is what is pressing pushing us to the brink. So if he doesn't address that and he sent us everything to Raila Odinga, then we lose the conversation. So as we start from maybe today, we need to be asking ourselves, what are those things? And then go back to the Constitution, implement the Constitution. We cannot cherry pick the Constitution and choose what to implement and what not to implement. Right now we have a legislator in Parliament who is now going to, has tabled a bill to review Section 37 of the Article 37 of the Constitution. Is that really important today? Our politicians need to understand, today you may be on the right side of government, but tomorrow things might change, and you need that Article 37 to express yourself. What we are seeing today is a continuous clawing back of gains that we have made progressively in the Constitution, and we have gotten those gains out of pain. And then finally, if government does not listen to all these things that Kenyans are saying, can we have maandamano even every day?
Okay. All right, let's bring up some of your feedback. We're running out of time here. Let's see your feedback as we close this conversation. At Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya is the hashtag Daybreak. We can't go without bringing up the feedback. There's a lot of it. Let's see how fast you can run through some of them really quickly. Agumba Steve, it's indeed true that a youthful nation should be productive in all aspects. It's so unfortunate that in our country's scenario, youths have been reduced to engaging in unproductive assignments to quench the thirst of politicians. The government must look into this, okay? D1 says, as living costs continue to surge, it's disheartening to witness our government seemingly disconnected from the people's concerns. Lincoln's enduring ethos for the people by the people should serve as a beacon of accountability. Continues to say, I think we have a continuation of that conversation. How can you explain about the armed youth who dismantles government property, looting supermarkets and shops, hurling stones at the police, to even injuring some of them? Are the police not human beings? Okay. Remy Bhutia says youth can advance civil society growth, poverty reduction, economic expansion and innovation by strengthening the participation of women and youth, promoting human rights, facilitating access to justice and ensuring inclusion in all communities. Nixon says, dear youths, be innovative, stand on your feet, be confident, refuse belittlement and being misused. Yearn for wisdom, knowledge and understanding. With this in mind, you can really give this country some shape. All right. Sebastian Kilonzo says, I concur with Shiko Kihika on the campaign mode the regime has activated daily on cars disguised as project launches. The government has lost touch with hustlers. It doesn't listen, and we the people are hard-pressed. Okay? Godi Baraza says there should be a reliable framework that will safeguard the youth from the exploitation of the political class. It's time young people ceased to be stock of political transactions. Okelo Mwalimu says it's totally unacceptable for political class to preside over violation of the constitution, which we worked so hard to put in place. How can you arrest an unarmed protester? Why should you hold people incommunicado in the 21st century? What's the point of shooting a child? Okay. Peter Gisaru says that the youth in Kenya are always misused by politicians to benefit themselves. They are given handouts. Kenya has not matured to hold peaceful demonstrations. The energies they are using to protest, let them use it to farm, to increase food production. I think that's what you're going to say. Captain says the one big problem with our country is that the ruling class don't eat the food that they serve. Their kids don't go to public schools. They get interest-free loans and grants. All right. That's where we leave it for now. Thank you so much for making time. Wilkista Duma, Executive Director, Run for Office. Shiko Kihika, Executive Director, Tribeless Youth. Andrew Leshonko, Digital Marketing Consultant. Babu Michael, Concerned Citizen. Philip Pandey, Inclusion Advisor. And Alenga Trostar, the Political Analyst. Thank you all for the insights this morning. That's where we leave it for now. Coming up next is Roy T-Boy on the decks. It's Level Up Friday. And Bensu as well. Let's see how well they can dance. Bye for now.